Now, with all of the digital asset management options available to us out the gate, and with some categories created for us, what we now want to do is we want to turn our attention in this chapter to how we can get content out the door quickly and consistently. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at two main sections here in this chapter. We're going to look at web content and how we can use structures and templates to accomplish consistency and really simplify the process for our content writers. And then we'll also look at the new 7.1 page fragments as well. All right, so in this video, we're going to take a look at our web content structures and templates. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now, when I talked about web content earlier, one of the things that I mentioned is that web content is widely used and it's one of the most flexible assets that we have available to us. And one of the reasons for this is because we have what are called structures and templates. All right. Now, structures allow us to predefine what information needs to go into a content article. All right. So for example, if I had a press release that I needed to create and publish regularly, there's going to be some information in there that I need. I might need a title, I might need a headline, perhaps a date of publication, maybe even a logo or some sort of way to upload an image, as well as, of course, the press release text itself. All right, that can all be predefined in a web content structure. And that's going to be distinct from our basic web content that allows us to use the Alloy editor to basically do whatever we want with content. With the basic web content Alloy editor, we can go in, we can add our HTML structure, CSS, JavaScript, we can have all kinds of fun with it. But there's no real way to determine consistency outside of perhaps some company standards. All right. Using structures, this allows us to enforce a little bit more a consistent standard for a particular type of web content. All right. So structures also allow us to distinguish the different types of web content that we might have. So for example, if I named a structure press release, that would be a new press release that I can now add. I would literally be able to go into the menu, click add and press release, and I would have that form that I can fill out for the press release structure. Right now, each structure has a set of fields that we can use to accomplish that sort of form to determine what information needs to be actually added to the web content. All right. So for example, we have things like booleans, dates, decimals. All right. There are a couple of ways of adding images. We could do it through the actual image structure field or the documents and media structure field. One of them allows you to upload an image from your desktop or from your file system, and the other allows you to upload images that are actually in the docs and media repository. Otherwise, we have things like geolocation, if we want to include a sort of map display, a location for the web content. And the HTML field actually allows us to add the Alloy editor. So there's some cases where we still want to give some people flexibility with formatting using the Alloy editor, but we don't want that to be the only thing they use to create their content. If that's the case, you can use this as well. There's also things like integer, text, text box, etc., etc. You'll see all of these options when you actually go into the site administration menu. Okay, we could do things like link to page, add select boxes, and with any of these structure fields, we can of course configure them. So we can change the name, we can determine what information actually goes into the database, etc. All right, and we'll actually see a lot of this in action when we do our hands-on exercise coming up here soon. Now, if the structure is going to define what information needs to go into the web content that we've selected, for example, our press release, the web content template is going to determine the actual output, the display, the presentation of our web content. All right. Now, templates are going to be something that your front-end developers can take care of or take advantage of. The templates are FreeMarker templates, and FreeMarker is just sort of a high-level overview, is essentially a HTML markup language that allows us to do a few cool things. We can take advantage of course, traditional HTML. We can add some classes in there. We can add some CSS if we want, or even JavaScript. But we also have the ability to add things like if statements. So we can have logic in these templates as well that interact with our structures. All right. We also have the ability to take advantage of some Liferay's API. So the benefit of using something like FreeMarker is we have the ability to reference Java objects. And since Liferay is a Java app, more or less, we can actually use some of that code to continue to flesh out some of that logic in our templates themselves. So this gives us a lot of power with our front-end developers to create a consistent experience with our different types of content that we need on the platform. All right, so what we can do is we can create the structures, we can provide the structures, we can define what kinds of content we need on any given site. Okay, in our case, in the Livingston Hotels and Resorts, there's a number of different content examples that we can have. Things like banners, perhaps about text for each of the hotels and resorts. Press releases is a relevant example as well. We can define those structures, define what information needs to go into those structures, and then we can have our front-end team come in and they can give us a template that pulls information from our structure and then provides the presentation layer for us. The nice thing about all of these options is once this is all said and done, if we need to update the presentation, we can just change the template. And for our content writers, so for example, if you're familiar with the Livingston use case, Maria Flores is one of the copywriters, one of the marketing copywriters. The benefit for someone like Maria is she now only simply needs to come to the platform. She needs to click add, let's say press release, and all she needs to do is fill out that information. She doesn't necessarily need to worry about formatting or providing any code or the sort of consistency that you might need if you're doing everything manually, because all of that would be predefined and done for her using the template, okay? So this gives us a lot of power with just keeping things consistent with simple web content, but also because these free marker templates give us a lot of power, there's a lot of stuff that we can do here with those templates as well, even beyond just simple presentation, all right? So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna go ahead and define a couple of structures that we can use for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts together. We're gonna create a new structure as well as a featured hotel structure. And then we're going to take some pre-existing templates for us that give us that presentation layer and see how all of this sort of works together. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.